There's a place in America where people disappear. Not missing, not dead, but gone from the world in a way that might be worse than both. Deep in the Colorado mountains, hidden in the middle of nowhere, sits a building that looks ordinary from the outside. Clean, quiet, almost boring. But inside these walls live men who have done things so terrible, so dangerous, that the government decided they can never, ever be allowed to touch another human being again. This is ADX Florence. And what happens inside is something most people will never see, never hear about, and never truly understand. If you want to discover the darkest secrets of America's most extreme prison, hit that subscribe button right now. What you're about to learn will change everything you thought you knew about punishment. The year was 1983. Inside a prison called USP Marion in Illinois, something went horribly wrong. 2 prison guards were murdered by inmates in a single day. The men who killed them were already serving life sentences. They had nothing to lose. The system had run out of answers. How do you punish someone who's already lost everything? They needed something new. A prison beyond prison. A place where escape was impossible, violence was impossible, and hope itself would fade away. 10 years later, in 1994, the answer opened its doors in Florence, Colorado. From the outside, ADX Florence looks almost friendly. Modern buildings, mountain views. But that's exactly what makes it so chilling. The location wasn't chosen by accident. Florence is in the middle of nowhere. If someone somehow got out, where would they go? Miles of empty desert. But the real purpose isn't escape. It's isolation. Out here, the world forgets you exist. Inside, ADX Florence holds about 360 men. These are the worst of the worst. Terrorists, gang leaders who ran empires from behind bars, and men who committed murder inside other prisons. Each one lives in a concrete box, about the size of a parking space. This is their entire world. The bed is concrete. The desk is concrete. The stool is concrete. Everything is concrete because concrete can't become a weapon. There's a thin slit for a window, angled so the inmate can see a tiny piece of sky, but never the ground, never the horizon, never another human being. The door is solid steel with a small slot for food. 23 hours a day, these men stay in these boxes. Alone. For 1 hour. If they behave, they're allowed into a recreation area. But this isn't a yard. It's another concrete box, just slightly bigger, with a skylight above. Still alone. Still isolated. Guards rarely speak to them. And when they do, it's through intercoms. Over 1,400 doors operate by remote control. Cameras and motion detectors watch every single move. Since 1994, not one person has escaped. Not one. But the real punishment isn't the concrete or the cameras. It's what happens inside your mind. Humans aren't meant to be alone. Our brains need other people. Take that away, and something breaks. Inmates at ADX begin to hear voices that aren't there. They talk to themselves for hours. Some scream in the middle of the night. Others stop talking completely, for months or even years. They pace in circles, counting their steps, thousands of times a day, because moving is the only thing they control. Psychologists who have studied ADX inmates found that many develop serious mental illnesses. The brain, desperate for input, starts creating its own reality. And here's the most disturbing part. Many of these men weren't mentally ill when they arrived. The prison itself created the illness. Drop a comment below. Do you think this kind of punishment is fair, or does it go too far? We want to hear what you think. So who exactly lives in this place? The Boston Marathon bomber, the Unabomber, the Oklahoma City bombing conspirator, drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, gang leaders from across America, spies who sold their country's secrets. But not everyone at ADX is famous. Many are people you've never heard of, men who attacked guards or killed other inmates. And some, critics argue, shouldn't be there at all. There are different levels of restriction, and the worst is a unit called H-Unit. This is for inmates under special administrative measures. Here, contact with the outside world is almost non-existent. Phone calls are rare. Mail is read and can be delayed by months. Some inmates go years without touching another human being. Human rights organizations call it torture. In 2012, a lawsuit forced some reforms for mentally ill inmates. But ADX is still operating, still isolating, still breaking minds. It's the end of the line, a place designed to make the world's most dangerous men simply disappear. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most hidden places. So we've talked about the general population units at ADX Florence, but it gets even deeper. There's a place inside the prison known as Range 13. This is the most restrictive, most secretive unit in the entire facility. Officially, very few people know exactly who is held in Range 13 or what the conditions are truly like. Why? Because the Federal Bureau of Prisons is notoriously tight-lipped about it. It's shrouded in mystery. But over the years, some details have leaked out from former inmates and guards. They've described it as a level of isolation that is almost impossible to comprehend. Think about that for a second. ADX is already the most secure prison in the country, designed for extreme isolation. Range 13 is where they put the men that even ADX considers too dangerous, too volatile, for its regular high-security units. These are the inmates who are a threat even to other hardened criminals in a Supermax environment. It's the deepest, darkest hole in the federal prison system. Now, on the flip side, the prison offers a glimmer of hope with a unit called the Step-Down Program. This is a transitional unit, a place where inmates can go if they've demonstrated consistently good behavior over a long period. It's designed to be a path towards earning slightly more freedom. Instead of just 1 hour out of their cell, they might get a few. Instead of complete solitude, they might be allowed to interact with 1 or 2 other carefully selected inmates. The entire point of the step-down program is to prepare these men for an eventual transfer to a less restrictive prison. It's supposed to be a light at the end of the tunnel, a way to prove they can be managed in a lower security setting. But here's the brutal reality of the system. Very, very few inmates ever actually make it through the program. The rules are incredibly strict, and the slightest infraction, one minor mistake, can send you right back to the beginning, erasing years of progress. Imagine spending years, even decades, following every single rule just for the chance to see another human being. Some inmates have been at ADX for over 20 years without ever advancing. It's a system that seems to dangle the prospect of hope with one hand, only to snatch it away with the other, leaving inmates in a perpetual state of psychological limbo. For many, the idea of ever leaving the crushing isolation of ADX remains just that, an idea. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives. There's a place in America where people disappear. Not missing, not dead, but gone from the world in a way that might be worse. Deep in the Colorado mountains, hidden in the middle of nowhere, sits a building that looks ordinary. But inside live men who have done things so terrible, the government decided they can never touch another human being again. This is ADX Florence. What you're about to learn will change everything you thought you knew about punishment. The year was 1983. Inside USP Marion, a maximum security prison, 2 guards were murdered by inmates in a single day. The killers were already serving life sentences. They had nothing left to lose. The system had run out of answers. How do you punish someone who's already lost everything? They needed something new. A prison beyond prison. A place where escape was impossible, and hope itself would fade away. 10 years later, in 1994, the answer opened its doors in Florence, Colorado. From the outside, ADX looks almost friendly. Modern buildings, mountain views. But that's what makes it so chilling. The location wasn't an accident. Florence sits in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by empty desert. If someone got out, where would they go? But the real purpose isn't just preventing escape. It's isolation. Out here, the world forgets you exist. Inside, ADX Florence holds about 360 men. These are the worst of the worst. Terrorists, gang leaders who ran empires from behind bars, and men who committed murder inside other prisons. Each one lives in a concrete box, about the size of a parking space. The bed, desk, and stool are all made of poured concrete, so they can't be weaponized. There's a small slit for a window, angled so the inmate sees only a tiny piece of sky. Never the ground, never the horizon, never another human being. The door is solid steel with a small slot for food trays. 23 hours a day, these men stay in these boxes. Alone. For 1 hour, if they behave, they go to a recreation area. But it's just another, slightly bigger concrete box with a skylight. Still alone. Guards rarely speak to them directly. Over 1,400 doors are operated remotely. Cameras are everywhere. Motion detectors, pressure-sensitive floors. The prison knows where you are every second. Since 1994, not one person has escaped. But the real punishment isn't the concrete or the cameras. It's what happens inside your mind. Humans aren't meant to be alone. Our brains need connection. Take that away, and something breaks. Inmates start hearing voices. They talk to themselves for hours. Some scream in the middle of the night. Others stop talking completely. The mind, desperate for input, starts creating its own reality. Guards have found inmates hurting themselves, not to escape, but just to feel something. Pain becomes preferable to numbness. Psychologists found many inmates develop serious mental illnesses. The prison itself creates the illness. But the people who run ADX say this is necessary. These are men who killed, who terrorized, who destroyed lives without mercy. What do you think? Does this punishment go too far? Drop a comment below. So who lives here? The Boston Marathon bomber, the Unabomber, the Oklahoma City bombing conspirator, drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who escaped 2 other maximum security prisons. ADX was built to make sure he'd never escape again. Spies like Robert Hansen, the FBI agent who betrayed his country to Russia, also ended his days here. But not everyone is famous. Many are just men who were too violent for other prisons. And that's what makes ADX so complicated. The decision of who goes there isn't always clear, and once you're in, getting out is nearly impossible. There's a unit called H Unit, which is even worse. Inmates there get almost no contact with the outside world. Phone calls are rare. Mail is read and delayed by months. Some go years without touching another human being. Life at ADX is a relentless, unchanging rhythm. Breakfast at 6 a.m. through a slot. 30 minutes to eat. Then hours of nothing. Lunch at noon. Dinner at 5 p.m. Then the long, empty night. The sounds are what drive people crazy. Doors slamming, intercoms buzzing, and sometimes screaming. Some inmates yell through the vents, a secret language just to know they're not completely alone. There is no set sentence for ADX. Prison officials, not judges, decide how long you stay. A fight in another prison could send you there for a year, but that can turn into 5, then 10, then 15. The system has ways of keeping you. Some inmates have tried to fight back, filing lawsuits. A few have won small victories, forcing small changes, but the prison itself and the isolation continues. This is the reality of America's most extreme prison, a place designed not just to confine the body, but to break the mind. A modern-day fortress where the country's most dangerous men are sent to be forgotten. Thanks for watching. If you want to discover more hidden stories, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to comment on what prison topic you want us to cover next. See you in the next video. What's it like for the kids who visit their fathers at ADX? They grow up watching their dad disappear behind a thick pane of glass. No hugs, no kisses, just a voice on a phone and a face that looks more broken with every visit. Eventually, some families just can't take it anymore. The cost, the distance, the unbearable pain, it becomes too much. But the government insists these measures are vital for security. They talk about gang leaders ordering hits during family visits, or terrorists passing messages through their lawyers. ADX was built to stop all that. But it leaves us with a haunting question. Where is the line between security and cruelty? Before we go deeper into the most shocking secrets of ADX Florence, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us what you think. Should a place like this exist, or is there a better way? Your voice matters. Now, let's get to the big question. Does ADX actually work? If you look at its original goals, stop escapes, prevent violence, and cut off communication with the outside world, then yes, it's been a massive success. There have been 0 escapes in over 30 years. But there's another, darker question. What happens to a person's soul in a place like this? Some argue that for the worst crimes imaginable, the punishment should fit. If you destroy lives, you forfeit your right to humane treatment. ADX is seen as justice served. Others argue that treating anyone like an animal in a cage erodes our own humanity. We become the monsters we're trying to punish. Here's a shocking fact. Almost all ADX inmates will eventually leave. Most aren't serving life sentences there. They do their time and then get transferred or even released. Imagine spending a decade in total isolation, your mind slowly breaking, and then suddenly you're thrown back into society. The shock is overwhelming. Many can't cope. They panic in crowds. They've forgotten how to talk to people, and some reoffend almost immediately, as if desperate to return to the only world they understand, a cell. Prison reform advocates are pushing for change. They want less isolation, better mental health care, and real pathways for inmates to earn their way out. A step-down program was created, but it's a brutal climb. One tiny mistake, and you slide all the way back to the bottom. And who even gets sent there? The decisions are made in secret. International observers have called the extended solitary confinement at ADX a form of torture. For now, the prison continues to operate, a monument to the idea that some people are too dangerous to exist among us. But at what cost? You can't unknow this now. You can't pretend this place doesn't exist. Thank you for watching. But there are stories from inside ADX that never make the news. Stories that reveal just how strange, how twisted, and how desperate life becomes when you're buried alive. Let's talk about the things that keep these men sane. Or at least, what passes for sanity in a place like this. Books become treasure. A novel that you might read in a weekend and forget about becomes something you read 10, 20 times, memorizing every sentence because it's your only escape from the concrete box. Inmates have reported reading the same book so many times they can recite entire chapters from memory. Some turn to education. ADX offers correspondence courses, classes you take through the mail, math, history, even college courses if you can get approved. The lessons arrive in your cell weeks after you request them. You work alone, with no teacher to ask questions, no classmates to study with. You send your completed work back and wait weeks more for it to be graded. Why bother? Because it gives your brain something to do. Because sitting in a cell with nothing to think about except your crimes, your regrets, and your hopelessness will drive you insane faster than anything else. Then there are the relationships that form in the strangest ways. Remember, these men almost never see each other, but they find ways to connect. Through the ventilation system, voices carry. Inmates learn to recognize each other by sound alone. They have conversations shouted through air ducts, never seeing the person they're talking to, never knowing exactly where they are, but hearing a human voice that isn't their own. Some develop real friendships this way, based entirely on voices in the dark. They share stories, give each other advice, and keep each other from giving up. It's the strangest form of human connection imaginable, but in ADX, it's all they have. But let's go deeper into the physical design of ADX, because understanding the architecture helps you understand the psychology. The entire facility is built like a fortress within a fortress. The prison is divided into units, and each unit is designed to maximize isolation. The cells are arranged so inmates can't see into other cells. The recreation cages are positioned so inmates exercising at the same time can't see each other. Every angle, every sight line, has been calculated to prevent human contact. The concrete walls are thick enough that inmates can barely hear each other even when they shout. Lighting is controlled centrally. The prison decides when it's day and when it's night. During lockdowns, guards can leave the lights on 24 hours a day, making sleep impossible. Temperature is controlled too. Cells can be made uncomfortably hot or cold. You can't open a window or adjust a thermostat. You exist at whatever temperature the prison decides. This level of control is profound. You have no agency over even the most basic aspects of existence. Some psychologists who have studied ADX compare it to sensory deprivation experiments. Those tests were stopped because the results were so disturbing. People hallucinated and suffered permanent psychological damage from just a few days of deprivation. ADX isn't exactly sensory deprivation, but it's close. And it lasts for years or decades. Now let's talk about something the Bureau of Prisons doesn't like to discuss: the mistakes. Not everyone at ADX belongs there. There have been cases of inmates sent to ADX based on faulty intelligence, information that turned out to be wrong. By the time the mistake was discovered, the inmate had already spent years in isolation. Getting out of ADX once you're in is incredibly difficult, even if you can prove you don't belong there. The system moves slowly. Appeals take years. Meanwhile, you're still in that concrete box. Mental illness makes everything worse. A major lawsuit revealed that ADX was housing severely mentally ill inmates in conditions that made their illnesses dramatically worse. Imagine being schizophrenic, trapped in isolation where the only voices you hear are the ones in your head. The lawsuit forced some changes, but critics argue that the very nature of ADX, the isolation itself, is incompatible with treating mental illness. And here's a disturbing reality. Some inmates arrive at ADX mentally healthy and leave mentally ill. The prison itself creates the disease. But despite everything, despite the isolation and the despair, some inmates create. They write books. They draw detailed artwork. They compose entire songs in their heads. Creativity becomes a survival mechanism. It proves you're still human. It's an act of resistance against a system designed to erase you. But this raises an uncomfortable question. Is ADX making dangerous people more dangerous? When someone eventually leaves, what kind of person are they? Have they been rehabilitated? Or have they been transformed into something worse, their minds twisted by years of isolation? There's no good data on this. But anecdotal evidence suggests that very few people leave ADX better than they entered. Most leave damaged, paranoid, and unable to function. And remember, some of these people will eventually be released, carrying psychological scars that may never heal. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives.